Well, I'm live.
Oh
I
yeah.
hope I am live. I don't really know yet. Well, I'm living, but I don't know if I'm live. If you can hear or see me, somehow let me know. Scream, post, comment. My name is James Oliver McVeigh. This is the very highly intellectual part of the show today. I am the self-described king of the fart books, and we're going to be getting into some very heavy philosophical and theological discussions. Uh, First of all, I'd like to thank Dublin, Ohio Irish Fest for inviting me. Page seems to be missing the link for the live stream. I've done about 5 Dublin, Ohio Irish Fests, I believe, over the years. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, the finest Irish festival in the world. I played a lot of them, and it is the best by far. You get a welcome there that is just unbelievable. Dublin, Ohio, as you can tell by the name, founded by Irish immigrants many, many years ago. And although a very modern suburb now, you genuinely get what you can only describe as a fantastic Irish welcome down there. Everybody involved in the festival is so proud to be doing it, so welcoming, and there's just no better festival I've ever played anywhere in the world than Dublin, Ohio. So we are missing it terribly this year. But what are we going to do? Next year, we sincerely hope that we are going to be there. As I say, my name is Jim McVeigh. I am king of the fart books. I've written 3 comic books centered around the notorious Farty McFee. The first one was The Ballad of Farty McFee. The second, Farty McFee and the Dark Goblin. And the third, Farty McFee and the Golden Serpent. All of these fine books can be found online at the usual sources, and our dear old friend Amazon. I'll just put the link up there. Anybody who doesn't have it, any home that doesn't have one of these books must get one immediately. The inspiration for the books, I've been writing all my life, but the inspiration for these particular books came from my eldest son. I have 3 boys. Boys are, as you know, little boys, notoriously difficult to get them interested in reading. But my eldest son, Matt, was a champion reader. He read everything he could get his hands on, and reading to him at night became difficult because he would be bored by the library of books that we had. He had them all memorized. And then one evening he just said to me, "Well, Dad, you were from Ireland. Tell me an Irish story." So on the spot, I made up this boy giant, Farty McFee, with a particular and notorious superpower, so to speak. And I was working with a guy called Bill Johnson, an incredible illustrator. And he said to me, "Well, that's a great idea for a kid's book. We should do it." Well, to cut a very long story short, about 10 years after we had that conversation, we actually set about creating this group of characters. And now, that was 6 years ago, now we have got 3 books done. And the 4th, making a special announcement for the first time to the world at Dublin, Ohio Irish Fest online. The 4th book will be Farty McFee and the Wizard Doctor. Will be the 4th book. With the wind behind us, we might have it next summer, or certainly the summer after that, if we're all still here. I had the idea for the book, and then Bill was handling the whole visual. So these books are beautiful. It's kind of lowbrow, highbrow. The lowbrow comes from me, but the highbrow are the quality of the illustrations inside. They're absolutely beautiful. The other thing that we did, because Farty McFee gets his superpowers from Granny's tarts. At the back of every book are recipes for tarts that you can make with the children. So once I'd opened my big mouth, I had to set about writing these books. And the first one, the title suggested to me the way to go because I call it The Ballad of Farty McFee, so it had to be musical. Now, I play traditional Irish music. And I hit upon the idea of the rhythm of the books should be to the rhythm of Irish traditional tunes. So the first book, Ballad of Farty McFee, is a jig, written to the jig rhythm. The second book is Farty McFee and the Dark Goblin, which is written to a slide jig rhythm. And the third book, Farty McFee and the Golden Serpent, is written to a real rhythm. So just to give you an idea of what that sounds like rhythmically, this is the old bodhrán, the Irish drum. So your jig rhythm is down 2 3, up 2 3, down 2 3, up 2 3, down 2 3, up. So that gave me the rhythm for the book, first book, and then the second book, down, down, up, and down, down, up, and down, down, up. And then the third book was a reel. So once I had the rhythm, that really started helping me with the writing of it. So having said all that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a reading from the book, the third book, Farty McFee and the Golden Serpent, which is the real rhythm. And I'm gonna do a little reading on that, and then I've been scribbling away over the years on kind of little memories of growing up in Belfast, which is where I'm from. This is a Belfast accent that you're listening to. A couple of little things on that, and then we'll finish it up with a few, couple of tunes, couple of songs. The other thing to mention about the book and the inspiration for the book, it is about a boy giant, and Belfast, overlooking Belfast, is an old dead volcano actually. But if you ever go there, you'll see it. It's called the Cave Hill. But it looks like a giant lying on his back, and it was the inspiration for one of the most well-known giants in the world, Jonathan Swift, the great writer. He was a Church of England vicar in a church in Belfast, or on the outskirts of Belfast. And he used to look at that mountain every morning, and he saw the giant lying on its back. That's what it looks like. And it was the inspiration, of course, for his unbelievable satirical book, Gulliver's Travels. Now, I'm not putting myself in such company as Jonathan Swift, but there you go. I was born under a giant, so to speak. So we'll give it a go, shall we? Farty McFee and the Golden Serpent. And I begin. I must have a drop of special Lourdes water before we get into it. Flowing in especially for today. Schoolmaster Drood was incredibly rude, and his face turned red, quite gory. Farty McFee, give that fiddle to me. You're supposed to be writing a story. But Farty kept playing and started to dance. All the children were shocked and glad-hearted, as old Drood ripped his gown and jumped up and down, and out of the room he departed. Well, Farty took a bow and tickled a cow, who blushed and quietly farted. And out of the door he danced some more, as the children and he were transported. The king of the bold watched this unfold, shook his fists, and grew quite turgent. I shall fix this boy once and for all. I will summon the Golden Serpent. To the rocks of Blather he ran in haste, and raised his crown to the mighty sea. O Golden Serpent, prince of the deep, your king is calling to thee. With hisses, bubbles, and reeking of troubles, the serpent rose and spoke quite softly. What do you want, old king of the bold? I was having a nap when you called me. Enough of your napping, the king began snapping. Tomorrow McPhee will be sailing. You must sink his ship and take him for a dip to the bottom of the sea without failing. With the sail full of wind, the sea dog departed. Old Granny and Esther looked happy. McPhee blew some more, and the old boat roared as the seagulls screamed and turned snappy. From the watery deep, the serpent leaped, grabbed McPhee and started to choking. Granny sank her tooth into his tail, and the serpent let go and began croaking. A mighty great wave tipped the boat over, and into the water they splashed. The golden serpent coiled around Esther, and straight to his cave he dashed. In the forest of Groom, the fairy queen swooned and awoke from a terrible slumber. That golden serpent and king of the bold has taken my Esther as plunder. On her unicorn steed to the sea she did speed, and dragged McPhee back into the water, to the serpent's cave, you cowardly knave. You must rescue my beautiful daughter. What have you done? Cried the king of the bold. That's Esther, the fairy queen's daughter. McPhee has survived, and now we must hide. We are facing our doom and great slaughter. Don't worry, old trout, the sly serpent spout. McPhee is half drowned and quite shaken. He is no match for me, the lord of the sea. This kingdom is ours for the taking. On the crest of a wave, the rescuers came, stormed the beach, and made ready for battle. Granny fed Farty with a tart that looked hearty, and the serpent shook his great rattle. Fairy Queen cast a spell as the old king yelled, and the serpent breathed fire and thunder. McPhee let fly with all his might, and blew the cave asunder. The serpent fled as the old king pled. Oh, Fairy Queen, I truly am sorry. Begone, little man, the queen began. You have reached the end of your story. All returned to the shore, happy once more. The king and the serpent departed. McPhee played a tune by the light of the moon, when he grinned and deliciously farted. There you go. God bless you all. Well, as I mentioned earlier there, I am from Belfast, in the north of Ireland. A wondrous place. Actually, to be more precise, I am from the mighty New Lodge Road. When people ask me where I come from, that's where I come from. A very small area north of Belfast there. All my schools were there. I walked to school with her. I rarely left it in the 21 years that I lived there. So I'm a very proud New Lodge Road man. That's where I'm from. The New Lodge Road, in the city of Belfast, in the County Antrim, in the north of Ireland. And I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be entertaining you in this fascinating, fabulous, stimulating way, unless at the age of 11, I sat an examination, won a scholarship, and was sentenced to 7 years at one of Ireland's most prestigious boys' school. This school was infamous, notorious. Really wasn't for the likes of me, but it was really a sausage machine that produced lawyers, doctors, and priests. And as I wasn't going to be any of that, it was 7 long years, let me put it to you like that. But when I passed this examination and won the scholarship, it was a great surprise. I'm in the middle of 8 children, and 5 had gone before me, and didn't get it, and it wasn't thought that I would get it, but somehow I got it anyway. And the day I got it was a big to-do, and the family gathered at my grandmother's house, and everybody was proud. My grandmother was delighted. Everybody was excited and delighted except me, because I knew exactly where I was going and what I was going to get. So I got a little thing I wrote here. It's called Lawyer, Doctor, priest. Read it again, she said. Again, Nellie, my father asked. Yes, again, she said. It is with great pleasure, he began. She squeezed my hand and lifted the heavy handbag onto her lap, that we offer James a place at the college. She opened her handbag and pulled out a handkerchief. Beginning on Monday, September the 1st. My aunt placed a fresh tray of sandwiches and another cup of tea before me. A lawyer or a doctor, Nellie, said father, as he handed the letter to my grandmother. She wiped her eyes, blew her nose, and returned the letter and the handkerchief to her bag. Or a priest, she said. I ate another sandwich. Belfast in those days, growing up there, it was a very interesting place to grow up. The Troubles were at their height, and our little area was under siege many times. Much difficulties, but much laughter. Watching those riots in Portland recently kind of made me homesick for the old days. And in areas like Belfast, and I'm sure areas like it all over the world, there's always rumors flying around all the time, you know? And there are always people who delighted in rumors and delighted in bad news. You know how people delight in this COVID-19 thing? They can't wait to see it, to tell you that if you get it, you know, your head will explode and snakes will come out of your neck. All this madness, you know. Well, in Belfast at the time of the 1970s, there were lots of people, lots of rumors, lots of people who loved rumors. And in our street, the street that I lived in, Little Row House Street, there was a gentleman there, and he was constantly listening to the shortwave radio, picking up the police and the British Army signals. And then when he would have a choice rumor, he would come down and knock on our door and share it with my father. It was always, you know, always the worst news that you can imagine. So I wrote a piece in remembrance of that and in remembrance of him in those days. And it does have kind of a resonance now with all this COVID-19 rumors flying around. Anyway, this is a little thing I wrote. It's called Invasions and Other Fairy Tales. They're gathering in Taggers Bay, thousands of them. I've been listening to the police on the shortwave. They'll be on top of us any minute. Thousands of them, drunk out of their minds, armed to the teeth, murdering men, women, and children. Tell your father. I held the front door open, and he pressed his face close to mine, his frightened eyes searching, the rain pounding his head, soaking his clothes, and filling his slippers. I will let him know, John, I said. They'll be on top of us any minute, he reminded me. I closed the front door. John said that there are thousands gathered in Taggers Bay, and that they will be top of us any minute, drunk out of their minds, armed to the teeth, murdering men, women, and children. I looked at my father. He stared at me and turned to my brother. Turn the volume up on the TV, for Christ's sake, he said. The Taggers Bay thousands never came. Maybe they forgot. Those were the rumor-mongering days on the mighty New Lodge Road. They probably have different rumors now, I'm sure. So you'll notice there on those first two little pieces I mentioned about my father, and he was a remarkable man, a man of incredible appetite for song, story, a little bit to drink. He had 8 children. He was a man bigger than life. He was a life force. Unbelievable. And my mother was a saint. Of course, she had to be a saint in order to deal with my father. Um, and we had a time came in the 70s, in the early 70s, my mother got ill. She was eventually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, but when she was first in the hospital, she was in the hospital a long time and never could figure out what was wrong with her. And my father was about 50 at the time. This is a man born in 1927. He worked two jobs. He printed at night and he worked in the docks during the day. He worked, 16 hours a day for 32 years, 6, 7 days a week. But he never boiled. He never boiled water. He never made toast. He could, Then all of a sudden, he has other duties to perform now. Making the dinner, cooking, where he developed two key skills in the culinary department: boiling and burning at the same time. And he literally would sometimes set his hair on fire from the stove. I kid you not. I kid you not. The other area that he had to deal with was clothing. And at night when we were going to bed, he would hand out pajamas. But he would give you your sister's nightdress. I would get my sister's pink floral nightdress, and my sister would get my stripy pajamas to wear. And you could not correct my father. He had a ferocious temper, lightning quick temper. And he was under all this stress. 2 jobs, wife sick, learning to cook, dealing with children, clothing. So we would just take it. I'd put the nightdress on. My sister would put my pajamas on. The rest of them would all my mismatched stuff. Then we'd go out into the hallway, and then I'd take her nightdress off, and she'd take my pajamas on, and we would go to bed and wake up in the morning with, a shred of dignity left. But this clothing thing would also expand to what we were going to wear when we went out for the day. And this is a little piece I wrote regards that particular nightmare. It has a little bit of glamour attached to it. That the heading of this piece is "Me and Earl Flynn," or "Earl Flynn and I." Those of you under the age of 40 won't know who Errol Flynn was, but he was a great star of the 30s. And his great role was that of Robin Hood. So this is me and Errol Flynn. "Your mother left these clothes out for you to wear," my father lied. There was a pile of clothes drying in front of the coal fire. The green woolly sweaters seemed normal, but the 2 pairs of thick, brown, woolen, schoolgirl tights did not. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Those," I said. "What about them?" "They are Lynn and Catherine's school tights," I said. "Well, I can't find your trousers," he shouted. "Anyway, it doesn't matter. You'll look like Errol Flynn." "Who?" I asked. "Errol Flynn in Robin Hood. You and your brother will look like Errol Flynn, and all the other children in the street will be jealous." He pulled the tights up. They felt strange, unfamiliar. "Put the sweaters on," he said. "Oh yeah, you look the part now." He opened the front door, and we ran out into the street. Green, baggy sweaters, brown, woolly tights, and matching plastic sandals. We ran straight toward the boys playing football at the corner. They all stopped playing and stared. Some closed their eyes, others turned away. Some filthy little swine started to laugh. I did not remember this happening to Errol Flynn or Robin Hood. Yes, indeed. Life on the Great New Lodge Road. Well, we're going to play a little couple of songs for you. I'm going to be ably joined here by a young fellow, I believe, on the banjo. coming around right now, Mr. Farty McFee. The first tune we're going to do for you is in commemoration of Dublin, Ohio Fest. That'll do a little Dublin song, Dublin, Ireland song. But sure, it'll work for Dublin, Ohio too. Sure, why not? Might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb, as the man said. This is a great old song. It's a true story. It's a story of a German man, actually, who came to Dublin many, many years ago. And he was a clock winder by trade. Now, that was a profession in the far-off olden times. The big houses, the big Georgian houses of Dublin would have had lots of grandfather clocks. And a man could make his living going around repairing those clocks or stalling them, fixing them up, what have you. And that profession was known as a clock winder. And this gentleman was very good at it. He was very good at clock winding, amongst other things. So it goes something remarkably like this. Are they in your case? Just use your fingers. The German clock winder. If you know it, join in. And if you don't, join in. A German clock winder to Dublin once came. Benjamin Phipps was the old German's name. As he was winding his way round the Strand, he played with his flute, and the music was grand, singing Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lie. Well, there was a young lady from Grosvenor Square who claimed that her clock was in need of repair. In walked the German, into her delight. In less than 5 minutes, he had her clock right, singing Turra-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lie. Now as they were seated down on the floor, there came a very loud knock on the door. In walked her husband, and great was his shock, for to see that old German wind up his wife's clock, singing Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lie. Now the husband, says he, now look here, Marianne, I don't want that old German in here again. He wound up your clock and left mine on the shelf. If your old clock needs winding, I'll wind it myself, singing Turra-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 singing Turra-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lama-lama, Turra-lie, 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 Turra-lie. And the crowd went wild. Close the drawer in there quickly. Beeps are going off. Well, last year at the Irish Fest, we had a whale of a time as always. But one of our authors, there's usually a big crowd of authors down there. for it in the tent, in the author's tent, anywhere between 15 to about 18 of us. And a lot of us have been doing it for years, so tremendous crack. You know, we're there out in the field. The festival opens at 11 and shuts at 9. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we're out there all day long. You know, the music performers, they get to go, you know, they can stay in the air conditioning all day and then show up and do their 45 minutes to go home. But we're out there for hours and hours and hours. And sometimes in the murderous heat, it can get very hot in Dublin, Ohio, into the 90s. You know, being from Ireland, of course, we're not used to that at all. So, and they're all Irish American authors. So there's like, you know, 18 of us in there sweating to death for 3 days. Well, we have a lot of crack. It's a great, great time. It's, as I say, it is a tremendous festival. If you're ever coming to America, the first weekend of August, get yourself down to Dublin, Ohio. Tremendous time to be had. Last year, one of our regulars, the great J.P. Sexton, Donegal, man. He's over there in Malin Head at the minute. How you doing, J.P.? Good to see you. I want to say good to see you, but hopefully you can see me. He couldn't make it. He went to Dublin Airport to get the plane over, and for whatever reason, you know what they're like, he can't get on the plane. Can't do it. But his books arrived. And were sold over the weekend by a notorious man who lives up in Winnipeg, from Newton Abbey in the north of Ireland. Mr. Greg Mad Dog McVeigh, the Belfast child. And I had to remind him one time that Greg, Newton Abbey isn't in Belfast. So to me, he will always be Greg, almost but not quite the Belfast child. I am, of course, 100% Belfastian. So Greg, God bless him, took care of JP's books for the weekend. And we all missed JP. Big time. And on the Saturday night, after the festival, we got back to the hotel and talking about JP and singing a few songs. And the next thing you know, we were writing the Ballad of JP Sexton. And I want to do it for you because it's got a great chorus, a very apt chorus. The chorus is, "Oh, I wish I was in Dublin, Ohio." And once I get into it, you'll get the hang of it yourselves, sure, and lash into it when you get the feel of it. But anyway, here it is. It's to a familiar melody, if you like. The Ballad of J.P. Sexton. God bless it. 2019, I ran out of steam as I was traveling to Dublin, Ohio. Your man said in me ass, "You shall not pass." Now I'm plunged into misery and sorrow. Me books on their way, I cannot delay. My heart was a candle a-flicker. I thought, Jesus Christ, me future's turned shite. It's been bad jacks by Mad Dog McVeigh. Oh, wish I was in Dublin, Ohio. Oh, wish I was in Dublin, Ohio. Sell all me books, get plastered on gooks. I'd be left with only me knickers. The big Yank sold out, now I'm up the spout. I don't think I've ever felt sicker. Well, boys, I'm near done. You've all had your fun in Dublin, Ohio, that's certain. I'm feeling half dead back in old Malin Head. Good night now, I'll ring down the curtain. Oh, wish I was in Dublin, Ohio. Oh, I wish I was in Dublin, Ohio. Yeah. Oh, wish I was in Dublin, Ohio. Oh, I wish I did. One more time, come on. Oh, I wish I was in Dublin, Ohio. Oh, house in Dublin, Ohio. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Wishing you all the best. James Oliver. I put the link out to the books out there on the old bake book. Every home should have one now. The Ballad of Farty McFee. Let me bring them up again. There it is. The Ballad of Farty McFee. Farty McFee and the Dark Goblin. Farty McFee and the Golden Serpent. Every home should have one. From the banks of Lake Michigan. I wish you would you. And next year, we'll see you down in Dublin, Ohio. We've got lots of great authors coming up. After me, we've got Mike McCarthy, Sinead Tyrone's coming up. J.P. Sexton, a man from God knows where, beaming it in live from Allen Head. And to complete the night, the legend, the myth, the monster, Greg